Nick Friedell covers the Nets for ESPN. He is awesome at talking basketball. It has been too long. It's good to see you. What's up?
Always, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so the Nets are on fire. I talked about them earlier this week on the pod. It's now 10 straight with a win against Atlanta on Wednesday, 14-15 since November 1st. They're 20-7, the best record in the NBA, and that is also when they made a coaching change. So I was going to ask you like something real straightforward if you were doing a radio hit, like, hey, what's changed? And then everybody just wants to go with, well, they have Jacques Vaughn. It's like, well, no, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. The guys are actually fucking playing now. And if there sounds like a little tone in my voice, that is an accurate read because like I saw some of Kyrie's quotes the other night. I just can't help myself with it already. He's like, Jacques Vaughn is holding us accountable. It's like, you're actually saying this. And again, sometimes athletes in post games just say stuff and there's words in the sentences and they're just like, hey, this sounds good or whatever. So let's try to dig into this as much as we can. Where are you at now with like, we both know what's changed. A couple things have, but they're a really good team right now. So let's try to just figure it all out. So go any direction you want to start this.
There are three reasons why the Nets are where they are right now, the hottest team in the league. Number one, Kevin Durant's playing like the MVP. Ryan, he's been incredible. And all the people over the summer that were like, can KD still play at this level for this long? He's answered the questions because the guy has been awesome. Number two, since Kyrie came back off that suspension, he's just played. He hasn't said or done anything off the floor that's going to create a headache for the team or the organization. I cannot stress to you enough, having lived it day after day in the last 6 weeks or so, how much that was weighing on everybody. I know KD came out after that game in Cleveland and said, no, the focus was always good in the locker room. Kevin has his opinion. My opinion is that was weighing on a lot of his teammates, a lot of the support staff. Day after day, they were just like, I cannot believe that we are in this situation again with Kyrie dealing with something off the floor. He's been really good when he's played. He has steered the course as best he can in these press conferences afterwards, and he has kept the message on basketball. I think that's been crucial. Number three, people point to Jacques Vaughn in the coaching change. Ryan, it is interesting, listen, especially to Kevin and Kyrie, because you're asking all the time, what's different? And they use these buzzwords like accountability and Jacques is coaching us and he's doing all these different things.
Simplifying things has been a big message this past week.
Simplifying. I thought the best answer that Jacques has given really since he's become coach was before and after that Cleveland win, he said, we've kept the focus on basketball. And what that means, at least since he's taken over, they don't really shoot around at all anymore. They don't really practice much at all anymore. What he has told them is, hey, give me whatever you've got when the time comes and it's time to play, whether it's 30, 35 minutes. I will keep your time off the floor and get you as much rest as I can before and after that. And I have not seen a team operate in this fashion like this over and over. Guys come in, they get their work, especially the younger guys. Some of the older guys get some jumpers up and they go through some tape. But this team, the only time they're really together for the most part is when they're playing or just before the game when they're having a walkthrough. But when you start talking about the differences between Jacques Vaughn and Steve Nash, it really is pretty simple. And I'm with you. They're just playing now. I think for as much as people wanted to get on Nash about the stuff he was running or he was trying to accomplish, for all parties involved, it just seems like that divorce needed to happen. And as far as Vaughn is concerned, he was kind of the right guy at the right time. And we'd be remiss if we didn't say part of this is the Nets have just played a lot of bad teams or a lot of teams that have been missing their best guy in the moment. So I'm still very hesitant as well as they've done to say, oh, well, Jacques Vaughn is doing this and this and this so much different than Steve Nash was doing. I think they've taken advantage of a weak part of the schedule. I think that Kevin has been awesome And I think the focus for these guys is just going to the gym, playing, and getting out of there.
To end the Jacques Vaughn part of it, like if Jacques is a better coach, I wouldn't disagree with that. You know what I mean? And part of being a better coach is getting your players to respond to you. And if them deciding, which again, most any established player in the league's like, hey, we have less shoot arounds, less practice. I love this guy. Right? Okay.
It's funny how that works.
There's never, ever going to be players that are established in the league like, man, we just don't have enough shoot arounds. This sucks. So if the job of a coach is to get guys to buy in a little bit more, because I still think people will constantly say a coach is good or bad. And then I'll be like, why? Yep. What do they do that is so good? What do they do that is so bad? And I feel like the answers are pretty limited and rarely specific. And so if Vaughn has gotten them to buy in because he's not Nash and it's not X's and O's, it's just a general day-to-day thing, then that's a huge win. But I've seen other media members act as if it's this definitive November 1st date, and it's like, okay, now, and it's like, it's completely dismissing the reality of what you're talking about, is that now everybody, we've had a stretch now for a month and a half or however long post Kyrie coming back, because I don't remember the exact date on that one, where it's like, okay, we're actually all just playing basketball. So let's pivot that into the Durant part, because I'm glad you said MVP, because I think some people be like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Because we got Luka, we got Giannis, we got Jokic, we got Embiid. We got Tatum. I mean, Booker was in the conversation before this injury. It's going to have him out for a month. Zion the other night. Again, he's probably missed too many games, but I'm with you. Like, I had a hard time giving that torch to Giannis, from Durant. I had a hard time with it. And I finally was like, all right, you got to give up. You got to give up. Like, Giannis is the best player. I love that Durant, of all the contemporaries, of all the stars, he is as good at dominating and being in control of a game without having to be dominant with the ball. And the game against Atlanta, it's like, okay, you need it now? I'll get you. 16 boards, the assist, the passing, the help defense. Like, it's tough to compare it to prime, pre all the injury stuff, but this is really special basketball we're seeing here again. And it's just an example of how much we take him for granted.
100%. And Ryan, I couldn't agree with you more in how I feel like the basketball world takes Kevin for granted, because whenever he wants, he can run down the floor, pull up, shoot a jumper over anybody, and knock it down, no matter what's going on. The difference in his game, and you pointed it out, and it's important to kind of spell out all the different things he's doing. Defensively, he's been very good. As a playmaker, there's so much focus on him that when two defenders jump on him, he's making the right play. The passes are there. The space he's creating for everybody else has been really something to see. And on top of seeing what he's doing during the games, you're talking to his teammates in the locker room, and they're like, this guy is on another level. And for Kevin Durant to be on a different level than where he's been at over the last few seasons, that tells me something right there. Jacques Vaughn said a couple weeks ago he thinks that Kevin's still getting better. And that's the difference, is everybody focuses with Kevin, I feel like, on, all right, he's going to drop 30 every night. Cool. But if you're not watching these Nets games recently, and you're not allowing for the fact that he has improved and has shown that he's helping in all these different areas, you're not understanding the impact he really is having on this group. So he has been just fantastic. And I think there was a big part of him having been around him that last year in Oakland with the Warriors, and having seen the transition from last year into the summer into now. He heard all that criticism. He heard all the people saying, oh man, this guy wants out, and he wants to get away from this situation, and he can't be that same number one player on a team that has a legit chance. And I do think he was a little more motivated coming into this year than he's been recently. But every night when you watch him, it's a mistake to just focus on the numbers. Watch what he's doing in all the other facets of the game.
I have a thought when I watch, because I'm surprised how hard the sellout doubles are, like on the catch and stuff, where they're doubling them as if they don't respect anybody else. And I wonder if his life's actually going to get a little bit easier here, because now it's like, all right, Kyrie's kind of back to like the best version of basketball Kyrie. Half court, we know that Simmons is still going to cause some clogging stuff, but he's just playing like this version of him is 100 times better than the guy that we first saw when he came back with the Nets this year. You've got Yuta, who I thought was hysterical in his comments, I think a week ago, where he's like, I'm not really even doing anything. I just stand there and I'm wide open. And then you add in Warren showing a little more pop, and Claxton, who I think gets better and better. Like, I almost feel like teams are going in with this defensive approach to Durant where, like, I'm not trying to call out like advanced scouts because they're doing this at a much higher level than I am. But I feel like, hey, you guys can't really just bail on everybody else the way you have been defensively. And the offensive numbers would prove it. They're torching everybody right now. And I think there needs to be some sort of adjustment that actually might make Durant's life easier, because I can't believe they're doubling him like he's the only good player on a high school team at times.
There's a recalibration that's got to go on across the league here, Ryan, especially if the Nets keep rolling the way they are. I'd throw another name at you, too, and he was terrible to start the season, and he's been really good over the last few weeks prior to some knee soreness that popped up. It's Joe Harris. Joe Harris, when he gets the ball on the wing and he's shooting threes, he's knocking them all down right now. Seth Curry has been a little up and down, but we know what he can do when he's right and he's in a good rhythm from the outside. So there is no question. You can't just throw everything at Kevin, because he's going to pass it to Kyrie, and Kyrie's going to make something happen. The caveat here, and we saw it a little bit at the end of that Hawks game the other night, when the game is tight, the thing that still scares me about the Nets, and we're going to find out the answer to this question as the season goes on, it feels like the ball movement and everything that's good in those first three quarters or so, it just stops and it's like, all right, Kevin's turn. Nope, it's Kyrie's turn this time. And if you're Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, yeah, you get the benefit of the doubt. You can make things happen on your own. But at some point, and this is again where there's going to be a measure of Jacques Vaughn that's more than, hey, we're getting these guys to play harder and holding them accountable, and the defense is better. You've got to show them on tape. You can't just go 1-for-1 down the floor. It's got to be something more than hero ball at times and making shots. And somebody else is going to have to step up and help. And I think there's enough respect up and down that roster. Maybe it is a guy like TJ Warren. Yuta has repeatedly shown that in the corner, he's knocking down that shot when the time comes. But that is the next step for this group, because they're going to be in tighter games. They're going to play a lot better teams than they played recently. And they're going to need somebody else to help them step up aside from the brilliance of Kevin and Kyrie.
Yeah, and I think there's another thing, too, that you hit on, because, like, Joe, when he came back, it looked awful. But, I mean, that's what I'll do, especially with younger players. Like, Jamal Murray looked out of it when he first came back. He looked like a guy that had, it's like, well, I still hold out hope for some version of Clay that's a little bit beyond what we're seeing now, because whenever I see a guy that looks like he's kind of out of it and slow or back from injury, I just shrug and go, okay, this is accurate now, but this is not my projection for this player the rest of the way. And I also think that, Curry being in and out, Joe missing some games, that I feel like it's messed up prep, because you go up against the Nets and you're like, wait, this team's actually kind of deep. That's why, when I hear all these criticisms of Sean Marks, I was like, I don't know. Like, sure, it'd be nice if they had a big, but considering everything that's happened with them, and then Harden bailing on him, and then having to kind of trade him for the only other guy you could trade him for was Simmons, and not knowing what was happening there, I was like, I really don't. And this is the part of the Durant thing. So as I transition into this, it's like, I love the guy. Okay. I love the guy. I love that I think he's real. I feel like I know exactly who he is. I love his fucking game, all of that stuff. But I couldn't defend it this summer. I couldn't defend it, because I'm like, you actually don't really have it as bad as you think you do. And you've got 4 years left on the deal, and you want out. You're the one that hit your wagon to Kyrie. That's your fucking fault. And so he made kind of a joke about not being on Christmas. And he said, it's probably because of me, because they didn't think I was going to be around. I still like way more of them. Like, that part of it is not going to cancel out all the parts I love, but you're around it every single day. Like, you wouldn't tell us on a podcast if you hated the guy, but like, how do you kind of interact with him knowing that he was completely wrong this summer, and they called his bluff, and now they're good? Like, he was wrong.
I actually really like him. And I feel like, because I had that year with him in the Bay, Ryan, that we've had these conversations even in the last few months where it's kind of like, all right, well, let's see what happens this year. But I think Kevin understood that when you step out publicly and it gets out that, hey, I asked for this trade, I want out of here, I don't want to deal with this. And especially, and this is a huge part of it, when you leave the Warriors and you leave the comfort that is playing with Steph Curry and Draymond and Clay, et cetera, but playing with Steph, and you pick Kyrie, and Kyrie, with the vaccine stuff last year, with the social media posts this year, people are just going to look at you and be like, what the hell did you do that for? But everything that's happened has led Kevin to a point where he's just kind of said, screw it. I'm going to play for me. I'm going to play for this team. And I'll give him credit for this, because there are so many guys who would have asked for the deal and would have asked for whoever to be fired and then come back and been like, man, I can't stand this place. I want out of here. I watched it with Jimmy Butler in Minnesota that next year with Tibbs. That team got derailed early. That team was done way before that deal ever went down. To Kevin's credit, whether or not you think fans will hear what's going on and think he made a mistake and it never should have gotten to that point, from the time he got to training camp, he went in and just said, all right, the focus is on making this team the best they can be right now. And I would have told you a couple weeks ago, I still think that there's a good chance that if they don't go where they want to go in the playoffs this year, that we could revisit and have the same circus over the summer. Hey, he wants out, he's going somewhere else. But Kevin Durant has shown up and done his work and gotten this team to play at a much higher level recently. And for whatever you want to say about the Nets, the reason the Nets are the way they are right now is because he's been awesome and he's allowed that, hey, this is a mess over the summer, but I can get us back on the track that we need to, and I can push this team to a higher place than it's been.